Every year, so you feel, at least for me, like extremely rejuvenated. Like instead of like you could look at what happened this last weekend all over the world, the Yahrzeit, and be like, okay, now I need a breather because there's so much going on. And Shabbos, even before Shabbos and all day, and Motzei Shabbos, and yesterday morning, afternoon, evening. But when you go through Sha'arei Kedusha, and the harder you work, the much more koach you receive afterwards. So hopefully, yesterday was a very, very, very holy day, a day which had. He says Yisroel, good one. So today's an important day because it's like, okay, so what was it? Just a chagiga? Was it just a celebration yesterday, or was yesterday the 19th Yahrzeit? An opening for much more new light that's coming down from Shemaim all the time. And the more that, Rabbi Shlomo once quoted the name of the Ishbitzer, it's in Parshat Toldos and Even Shlomo, I think, that the difference between food and Torah is that the more you eat food, the less hungry you are, and the more you touch Torah, the hungrier you get. So it's just perfect how it worked out this year, that right after the Yard said, boom, going right back into learning. Right back into learning the Torah, the teachings. So once again, we're dedicating tonight's learning, Leilui Nishmas, Yitzchak ben Yeshua, and also for I want to do also tonight is the Yahrzeit of, tonight's the Yahrzeit of Reb Meir David ben Reb Cheskel Shraga. It's Rav Kahana's Yahrzeit tonight. And I want to do the learning Leilui Nishmato, Shtei Nishmato Tzra B'Tzra Chaim. And also for the Tzaddik's Yahrzeit Reb Yisrael David Esser. So it's like, again, we always said that, told that Cheshvan is the month where you miss your Rebbe. So this is like, there are a lot of moments to connect to different tzaddik in this month. It's a Yahrzeit? Alei Shalom. Kayla Zissel Bad? Kayla Riva Bad? Bad Zissel, Leilui Nishmata. Yisrael Hashem. Right. All right, Chavre, so we have something so important to learn tonight. Every week is important. Tonight, it's going to take, again, this doesn't say anything. The fact that it's 2 pages, it doesn't say anything, because sometimes we've been, come across a paragraph, and for not just during the Shiur, everyone's going like this, but all week long, everyone's like, what is he saying? What's going on? So we have like 2 pages of that tonight. No, I'm kidding. Everyone's like, I schlepped out. I schlepped out from wherever I came from to get so confused. More confusion in my life. No, chas v'shalom, not more confusion. But our Parshat Chayei is the most romantic Parsha in the Torah. When you say those words, romance and Torah, it's like it's an oive. No, you can't say those words, right? And how many of you ever heard of Eviatar Banai's music? Eviatar Banai has some beautiful music, very beautiful. Little touch on the melancholy side, but that's just because he's an artist, right? And malasot, nothing you can do about it. But he has a song, I believe on his previous album, called Oraita, which means Torah. And if you don't get to the chorus, or if you didn't read the title track on the CD cover, you'd be sure that he's speaking about a girl who keeps on breaking his heart, but he can't leave. He keeps on running back to her. And I remember I was flying once probably to New York, and I was on the plane, and I was like, wow, this guy, before I saw the name of the song, I was like, this guy has such guts to still go out there with his, now with a beard and a yarmulke and tzitzis and talk and then put out these love songs. Like, wow, this guy's pretty gutsy. Then I realized he's talking about the Torah. He's talking about Torah, which is just so beautiful. Now, if we really understood how much love, and that's the one word that we're going to stick with from the Yahrzeit, how much love is coming down through every parsha, through every Torah that we have, then we'd understand that the Torah really is the most romantic expression that exists in the universe, an expression of love. When I say romantic, I mean it in the holiest way. Look, what's the holiest? This is a debate amongst the tzaddikim, but they came to the maskana, to the conclusion that what is all the Svarim of Kodesh are holy, but what's holy of holies? Shir HaShirim. Does it get more romantic than Shir HaShirim? It doesn't get more romantic than Shir HaShirim, than Shlomo HaMelech. Our parsha, we don't know how Adam and Chava, we know how they kind of met because, they were kind of created back to back or whatever that is, however you want to understand how they met. But Noach and his wife, by the way, Noach's wife's name? Naama, yeah. Naama.
That's right.
Naama. We don't know how they met. We don't know who their shadchan was. We don't even know how, do we know how Avram and Sarah met? No.
They were family.
They were mishpacha. She was his niece, right? So it must have been like a sweet 16 of someone in the family or someone's bat mitzvah. They met, which would be weird because that means he met her when she was very much younger. But when it comes to ages in our parsha, nothing gets weirder. Rivka is 3 years old. So when Eliezer meets her, which people have been for years saying that just proves that this whole thing called Torah, Old Testament, it's all just someone's wild imagination. How could anyone 3 years old, how could he know? Beseder, we'll get to that too, hopefully. Or maybe not. But when it comes for the first time we learn of a couple becoming one in the Torah. It is the most romantic scene in the universe. The whole description, the whole understanding of Yitzchak and Rivka meeting, but even more than that, of Eliezer's experience with Rivka, finding the Ima for Am Yisrael, finding the one that's going to be continuing the legacy of Sarah, who just passes away in the beginning of the parasha. It's a beautiful, the details are just incredible. And if you look inside, the truth is, we should have looked inside. I'm just telling everyone, whoever's going to be learning this online later, pause it now and go into the Chumash in Parshat Chayei. I think it's Sheni. It's where, in the second Aliyah, maybe the third, where you have over there how the whole story, how Avram sends Eliezer, and how Eliezer meets Rivka, and what he has to do, and then how he knows it's her. And it's just an incredible story. And then how he brings her back. And then there's a whole, I once learned a whole mimer of Rav Ginsburg. We once gave a whole shiur on this in Simchat Shlomo, how the word sadeh is used in this parsha. I forget how many times, maybe like 20 or 30 times the word field is used, both in connection with Chayei Sarah, which the field that Avram Avinu bought from Ephron Achiti, and in regards to the field that Yitzchak goes out to daven, Mincha. So,
how did he know where to stop? There was a well in the field.
There was a well in his, that's how he knew where to stop and daven. So there are a lot of points in this parsha. There's a lot of things going on. And tonight what we're going to be doing, though, is we're going to be learning the story of really how Eliezer knew it was her. But the details in the story, it just shows you how you can't just jump over any detail in the Torah. Any time the Torah mentions, and he said this, or and there was 9 versus 10 amount of something. It's amazing. Everything is betachlit hadiyuk. Everything is mamish exactly there, the quantity and quality, every number of every single thing that ever existed in the Torah, it's exactly there for a reason. Rivka, after learning tonight's piece, becomes the coolest Rebbe in the world. So profound. Her understanding of what a Jewish mother should be, her understanding of what a shaliach, how a shaliach has, a messenger has to act, everything is so profound in the teaching we have tonight. I edited it even more than it shows up in Even Shlomo. So the extended version is in here, in Even Shlomo in the first volume, under the same title, When Something Becomes Mine. So, to pass these around. Almost all of them are double-sided. A few of them came out on its own page, so I have to staple. Alrighty. All right. I made it to the back? Yeah? Okay, Yofi. When something becomes mine. The Ishbitzer says the deepest thing in the world, this is from the Beis Yaakov. The Beis Yaakov is the son of the Mea Shiloach, Reb Mordechai Yosef. His son is the Beis Yaakov, Rabbi Yaakov of Ishbitz. Okay? We're not talking about the girls' school. Here, Eliezer made for himself a siman, a sign, when he sent out to find a wife for Yitzchak. How will he know who is the one that's suitable to marry Yitzchak? Eliezer will ask water from a girl that he meets. And what was the sign? If she will not only bring him water, but she'll bring his camels water too. She's the one for Yitzchak. You see what's amazing? When Avram Avinu sends him out to find someone for his son, Avram Avinu doesn't tell him exactly what to look for. He kind of says, listen, you're my Eved Ne'eman, you're my faithful servant. Eliezer, you're my, Eliezer. There's a lot of beautiful midrashim explaining the relationship between Eliezer and Avram Avinu. Beautiful stuff. There's also a crazy midrash that says that Eliezer was actually, do you know who? This is very weird. Og Melech HaBashan. You ever see that inside? It's a very crazy thing because it's actually wars with Og Melech HaBashan and Bnei Yisrael. But in any event, for now, without, again, to avoid as much confusion as possible, Eliezer is told to go and find. And Rabbi Shlomo has a whole other teaching explaining that Eliezer is the first one, the innovator of Torah Shebaal Peh. He was the first person who made up his own siman, that by this he would know how to act in this world. So he comes up with this siman, that if he asks a woman, for water, not only will she give him, but she'll give his whole entourage. Now remember, Avram Avinu is one of the richest Jews that ever walked the face of the earth. Back then, that's for sure true, because he was the only Jew who walked the face of the earth. And he was very, very, very wealthy. Va'avraham kaved ma'od, ba'mikneh, ba'kesef, u'ba'zahav. We said in last parsha. Avram Avinu had a lot of wealth. When he sends Eliezer, Eliezer's coming with servants, with gemalim, with a lot of them. It's not just he himself and one camel. And this is the siman that Eliezer gives. If she'll also feed my entourage, this is the one for me. Now look at this. This meaning this is the one for? Yitzchak. Not me, Yitzchak. The Ishbitzer says that it could have been done in a much more beautiful way. Eliezer could have said, hey, I'm sitting here by the well, looking up to the sky, and suddenly out of nowhere, this girl comes up to me and says, hey, would you like some water? Isn't that even more beautiful? That Rivka would be doing the whole thing on her own? Meaning, what's such a great thing in the world that if you ask someone for something, they give it to you? Oh, then you know she's a gewalt. Wouldn't it just be much better if Rivka just, on her own, saw someone and said, that person must be thirsty, and she would come up to him. You understand the first question? What's a greater merit? What's a greater privilege? What seems like a greater love story? Again, if I come up to someone and say, can you please give me something, and they give me, and then they decide I'll give also your chevra, that's nice. Doesn't blow my socks off. But if I'm just walking on the street and someone can't wait to help me, they want to come on their own and say, hey, do you need anything? That resembles much more chesed in the world. That's the first question. And also one more deep question. The Gemara says that there were 100 steps going down to this well. Right? Remember, she was going, there's a midrash says she was going to the mikvah, but again, if she's 3 years old, what's that about? But she was going down to the well to draw up water. Eliezer saw that when Rivka is going down to the well, the water is coming up to greet her. That's what it says. The water would come up to her. So obviously, Rivka is a very special girl. So much so that the water is coming up to greet her. Well, if this is so, why do you need to test her? And even stronger, why is it that Rivka wanting to give water to the camels is deeper than the miracle of water coming up to greet Rivka? Okay, so outside the text, Chavra, what does Eliezer need to see? He needs to see a siman. He needs to know this is the one. Now, if you saw a woman, a girl, going down a well, 100 steps, and the water comes up for her, would you need anything else to prove to you that she's the one? That would be enough.
You wouldn't know how she behaves. Like,
You would tole it. You would tole it. You would
no, she's
base
special,
it.
but how would she act?
No, but that's enough. No, he needs to know. He needs to see if this is happening to someone like this. I need to trust my chush that she is deep enough. If water is coming up to greet her, I have to trust her with that. I have to trust my instinct.
Well, yeah, but the simon was given before. He had set up the simon before the water came up to Rivka.
So the question is, then why did he still continue with what he had planned?
Because the second that he makes a t'nai on it, you can't just say...
How do we know he made a t'nai on it? We don't know. It could be. I don't want to knock it. It's your Rashi. Maybe he did. I don't know. But we don't know from the pshat that he said this is the only way. We know what we know. So again, these are two very interesting questions which you have to understand. It's dafka put out there. I want to go over it again. When you want to be blown away by someone, what's your criteria of being blown away by someone? Simple as it is. Some people need certain things, but to really look, it's a big shlichus. Can you imagine? I want you to understand, Eliezer going out to find a woman for Yitzchak, do you know how much he was trembling? Trembling, but he wasn't just trembling to make sure that he made the right decision. He was trembling because he realized, oh my God, Avram Avinu trusts me. Avram Avinu trusts me. You know do you know when Hasidim become real Hasidim of a Rebbe? When the Rebbe first sends them to do something in his name. You know, what's the empowerment of Lubavitch? How could it be these little shmegegis who just turned bar mitzvah, barely have 2 hairs on a mustache, go drive you nuts on a plane, did you put on tefillin yet? Where does that come from? How in the world do they have this azus to feel like they, look, let's face it, it's a beautiful thing. A Lubavitcher walks the streets of the world feeling like the whole world was meant for him to do his shlichus. And he will do anything he needs to do. He walks the streets with utmost confidence that what he's doing is exactly what needs to be done. Why? Because he was completely empowered by his Rebbe. And we're talking about kids that are born now, not kids that spent years by the Farbrengens in 770. That's just in Lubavitch. But in any school of thought, especially when it comes to schools of Kedusha, the empowerment is just incredible when you give that over. Avram Avinu gives that over to Eliezer, saying, I am going to trust you to make the right decision. Just want you to understand what was going on in his mind, what Eliezer must have felt. So these questions are very relevant because it's a very deep, deep story. And every prat, every detail of what happens here is of utmost importance. Now, it's going to get a bit more fun. Now it's going to get a bit more basar, flesh. Okay, Chavra, let me ask you, 3rd paragraph. What are we doing here in this world? You know something? If God wants Mashiach to come, God can push a button and Mashiach would be here right now. You ever think about that? Did you ever ask yourself, why doesn't Hashem want Mashiach to come? Right now? Because if God, I know, totally. If the Rebbeinu Shalom wanted, right now, this second, the Geula could happen. In God's perspective, God's God. Right? So, huh?
He has the ability.
Yeah, God could have a Kenyan band of women come and do dancing nuns in front of our house. Meaning, whatever most wildest things in the world could happen right now, whether we want it or not, because God is God. So Rabbi Shlomo says, if Hashem wanted right now, Mashiach would come right now, this second. This is so important. Everyone look inside. I'm living in this world for hopefully 150 years. That's not a typo. That's actually what he said. I have to go through so much pain and so many tests so that my neshama reaches a certain level. Now it is a typo. Can't God put me right there on that level? God has enough elevators. Right? If the goal is that my neshama becomes refined and reaches a very exalted state of being, then Hashem could also just make my neshama refined and put me on a very exalted state of being. Why all the steps? Why are there so many steps all the time? Why are there so many levels that, Chaver, let's face it, the second you pass one level, you think, okay, now I can rest a little bit, right? And then what happens? Nothing and everything, because you realize that one step you just took was such a little baby step compared to where you are. And I had a friend with me, Rosh Hashanah this year, from the States. He said to me, Shlomo, remember where you were last year, Erev Rosh Hashanah, and where you are today, right? I said, yeah. He said, what do you feel like? I said, well, I felt like I was in kindergarten and now I'm in high school. So he says to me, you graduated, huh? I said, well, I feel that. I can't even, not on a high level, but in terms of what I've been through in a year, and I'm sure everyone feels like this. He says, great. And do you realize that next year the same thing is you're going to feel the same thing? But what he was saying was, you'll never feel like you graduated anything unless you actually go through the year. Listen to this. For what do I need the whole thing of tests? Do you see what it is? Rabbi Shlomo says, we're always on the crossroads. But do you know what the essence of life is? The essence of life is that God gives us so many tests, so many tests. In today's world, the world is divided into two types of people, losers and winners. If someone can make $2 million and be a public speaker, he's successful. And if not, he's a loser and nebuch, a schlepper. Maybe there's something to it, Rabbi Shlomo says. But this is not what I'm thinking of. I'm talking about being an inside winner, or God forbid, being an inside loser. An inside loser. And this is going to give us so much koach, okay? This is going to give us so much strength to hold on right now. An inside winner is somebody who God gives them tests. Who's the first real winner in the Torah? The first real winner is Avram Avinu, who was tested 10 times. But the question is, how do you get through the tests? Like a winner or like a loser? Now, this is important. Now we're going to really be medayek. We're going to really look deep into just his language and ask ourselves, did he make a mistake in his speech or not? Because what did he say here? The question is, how do you get through tests, like a winner or like a loser? Does that mean, the question is, did you pass a test or not pass a test? No. Do you understand how deep that is, the difference? It is so different. It's such a big difference. Our understanding, well, I heard this last night. This was so beautiful. Dear friend, Ruth Yael Nussbaum, I don't know if any of you know her. She is, she's unbelievable. If you haven't heard her ever, it's kedai to learn from her. Wherever she is, she's an incredible Talmidah Chachama. Her way of looking at the Torah is so profound and so intimate as well. And she really is a Hasidah of Reb Shlomo. On a Torah level, more than like anyone, on a certain level, more than anyone I've seen. Anyway, before we started playing last night, she spoke at Yakar. And she said something beautiful. One of the things that Reb Shlomo changed in our understanding and concepts of Yiddishkeit is that holiness does not mean perfection. Those are two separate identities. It could be perfection, but it does not mean perfection. Holiness has nothing to do with if you're perfect or not. Reb Shlomo just said to us what holiness is. Do you go through the tests like a winner, or do you go through a test like a loser? Guess what, Chavra? I guarantee right now. Everyone in this room is going to go through a test from today until Mashiach comes that they're going to fail. But what I can't guarantee is if you're going to go through a test as a winner or as a loser. That test that you failed. There are many tests that we fail in life. The outcome isn't a perfect outcome. What happens at the end of my test is not, look what I did in the world. Now I went through it and now look what I did. I go through a test as a winner or as a loser. Now, it's enough to stop here and just discuss what this means. Because it's such a profound idea. I don't have to tell you, I know, from the little that I know the people that are sitting here, and that I could see the names online, and that I know the Chabad that are going to be learning with us later in the week. There are people that are put through such tests that have nothing to do with their choice. We're not born into we don't choose to be born into an imperfect world. Okay? I heard David Sachs quoting Rabbi Shlomo this week saying, we think there was Gan Eden, perfection, man comes, messes everything up. So David Sachs says, well, in the name of Rabbi Shlomo, if Gan Eden was so perfect, what was a snake doing there? It's a thought, right? What a line. Do you realize, if we stopped and meditated on that line, what that means for our lives? It is avodah zara to think that holiness means perfection, because you'll never end up anywhere. You'll go through every test in life, and even if you make it, you'll make it like a loser, not like a winner. So how does a winner go through a test versus a loser going through a test? That's the question. How? Good. Let's ask Tachlis. Great. We're talking big ideas right now. Big stuff. I want to know how to go. I want to know how to walk the streets of the world. I want to know how you go through a test in life like a winner. That's what we want to know. Because we don't know if we'll ever get a job opportunity in the Philippines. So I don't have to deal with that. We don't know if we'll win the lotto, so I don't have to be nervous about what am I going to do with my money and who I'm going to distribute tzedakah to. I don't know if God will expand Efrat until, closer to Beit Lechem, if it's even possible. I hope it will. I hope it'll cover it. Another 10 meters, yeah. I don't know if it'll happen or not. I hope it does. But right now, I want to deal with what I know for sure is going to happen. What's going to happen is that tomorrow, or even by the time we go to sleep tonight, each and every one of us is going to have an opportunity to walk through a test like a winner or like a loser. That's all I know. That's all there is in life. And we learned this from Rav Yitzchak Ginsburg a few months ago, and I'm going to repeat it again, because it's so special. We learned this on the Moshav also. Avram Aryeh kind of explained this to us deeper. Rabbi Trugman, we know, Chazal say, Ein simcha kehatarat hasfekot. There's no greater simcha in the world than removing doubt. Because once you remove doubt, you have clarity. Like when a person's not sure who to marry, who not to marry, then once he finally removes all the doubts and this is clear to him, this is what he wants to marry, En simcha kehatarat hasfekot. But Rav Ginsburg says, the truth is that every single moment in life is a suffix. Do you know why? Because does any of us know what's going to happen right now? Or right now? Or right now! You see, no one expects me to scream, but that's every single... No, I'm being serious. I didn't mean to... I'm being very serious right now. None of us know what's going to be the next, you're all waiting to see what I'm going to do now. It's so funny. Everyone's waiting, I see everyone's eyes. Every second is a suffix. So you know what it means? En simcha kehatarat hasfekot? I want you to think about it. We're not going to say it right now. I just want you to, we'll get back to this next week. If every single second is a suffix, what does that mean in life? For our learning tonight, it's very important to understand this. Every single moment in life is this question. Am I going through life, through the tests, as a winner or as a loser? Now let it be clear to you, friends, the bottom line on the first...
On time? Hatarat is on time?
Like be matir. Well, that's the question. I don't want to get into it. That's exactly the nekuda. Is it to untie? It doesn't know. Very good. No, it's plays with your mind now. Let it be clear to you, friends. Nothing in the world can bring Avram Avinu down. He's strong like a lion. Let's see, Chavrei from Web Yeshiva. Did the second page turn for you? Because in the past, when we changed pages, If yes, please just write yes if you can see the second page right now. Okay.
Is he gonna explain what it means, like a winner or like a loser? 'Cause
Yeah,
I
don't
don't
worry.
get it.
Yeah, don't worry. Ask me at the end of Shiur. Okay, very good. Throughout my life, I have to go through so many tests, and only after that do I hopefully reach the level which I'm supposed to be on. Then, there are times when God gives me a certain test, and this one test touches me deeper than anything else. In 1 second, I reach the highest that I can get out of me, because it squeezes out every ounce of depth of my neshama. Okay, so this is just, everyone should know. There are many different nisyonos in life. When I said, okay, you're all going to go home and have a test tonight, I'm not talking about the test of, will you save the identity of your hometown? Like, those are deep tests too. But we're talking here about, there's different types of tests. And every time I go through something, my neshama gets more refined, hopefully. But then there are moments. I have such a test, and I go through it, I'm completely refined in that one act. It could be. There are moments like that. But usually, you know what happens after you do that, after you go through that? If you're aware of it, you're very proud of yourself. Or if you're not aware of it, it means you probably die because there's nothing left for you to do here. If you pass the ultimate test, which, that's it, you squeezed out every ounce of depth of your neshama, what's left? What's left? Okay. So if this is so, why do we need so many tests? Meaning, it's possible to, like we said before, Hashem can put me through that one test that I need, I'll become who I have to become, I'll know Hashem Echad U'Shma Echad, Hala. What's next? So here's what the Ishbitzer says, and open your hearts in the deepest depths. This is so beautiful. The Gemara says that when you eat something which was not deserved, meaning that you didn't work for it, that you didn't deserve it, you're afraid to look up to the person who gave it to you. What does a poor man look like? Always looking down. Never. You see what it is? I don't even want charity from God. I love God with all my heart. I'm ready to die for God 1,000,000 times a second. I don't want God to give me charity. I want to deserve it. I mamish want to deserve it, that which I'm receiving, the sustenance which I'm receiving.
It also explains the only meaning of the man.
How so?
When they start to whatever, and they hear what God says, and they're not even connected, like, because they got this man straight from God, they didn't need to work for it, they didn't need anything.
It's amazing.
So immediately they're disconnected from this connection with God because they don't want to be dependent on God giving them stuff that they don't
amazing.
deserve.
You already said, this is amazing because what Scott's saying is so right on. You know why? Because when you think that when Am Yisrael is in a relationship where they're directly receiving manna, which is godly food from heaven, how could you go wrong? You know how many things went wrong while we were eating man? Do you know how much kvetching was taking place while we were receiving man?
They were complaining about the man they wanted slab.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Like Dafka when they're receiving man, they're kvetching on the. Why? As Scott just pointed out, why? Because when you get something without working for it,
You know the Yagato Matzata.
mamash, there's no oneness with that which I have. Because I'm not part of it, even if it's going inside of me.
That's why they wanted what was in Egypt. That's why all their
Because that they knew, right.
What did we have in Egypt?
Right.
We worked.
We
and
were
got
slit,
this.
nachon, tov
Because they
meod,
worked for it.
tov meod. Very strong. Very strong. Yeah, we look at them like they're crazy. They were asking to go back to Mitzrayim. Are they nuts? They're receiving man right now, but that meant nothing to them. Now look at the next line. This is it, Chavra. This is the blast of all blasts. So all the Sfarim say that what we are gaining from being in this world, the whole thing we're gaining from being here, is that we're able to work for that which is given to me, which is unbelievable. I'm going to say this again. What we are gaining from being in this world is that we are able to work for that which is given to me, which is unbelievable. He's saying, do you want to taste life? Rabbi Shlomo is saying, he said, do you want to walk? Do you want to go through this world and really like taste the reason that God put you in this world? Do you really want to be touched? We were talking about this so much over the weekend and last week. Do you want to be touched by the essence of life, of Chaim, of the reason you're here? You're touched, you're put in this world not to be someone that receives manna in the desert. You're put into this world. God will give you. God always gives you. God always supplies. But do you want to work? Do you want to feel that you're shutafim, the Maaseh Bereshis? Do you want to feel that you're part of what's going on? Or do you want to just have this relationship where it's completely one-sided? You know, you could say a million things that are wrong about the way that certain countries act in terms of their domestic and foreign policies. But you always have to know that those things that we call chad tzaddi, those things that are done unilaterally, they're the most cancerous in the world. Those ones are the worst ones. Those ones are the worst ones. You know why? Because you end up going back to such a dark place where the only one in the world you could blame is everybody else, because you justify it. I can't go too much deeper with this, but we'll talk about it another time. You know what Rabbi Shlomo once said? He said, you know what's so deep about life? And everyone was waiting for the answer. He said, life itself. We think, okay, what's so deep about life? What aspect is deep? Do you realize how many people could be in the world, but they're not, and we're in this world? Do you know how many shamas, how many pregnancies, shalom neda, how many women, unfortunately, weren't able to carry through semesters? But you and I are all here. Do you know how much more life might have been in this world? Life. I don't know successes or failures. Life. Life itself. Do you know what it means to go through life as a winner? Just to realize that life is the deepest depths. Just life itself. That tests are the deepest thing in the world. When you throw out the calculator of cheshbonos of when I good or bad, is God good or bad? It's such a redeeming feeling when you really stop calculating what's good and what's bad. Now, what is this called, what we just described right now when we say that the deepest thing of life is life itself? Eitz. What are we trying to do all the time? What are we trying to do all the time? We're trying to fix the sin of Eitz Adat. What is the sin of Eitz Adat? What's good about life? What's bad about life? Wait a second. Life is everything. Remember, Scott, when Tiferet was born and everyone asked me, remember what they were asking me? Is she a good baby or a bad baby? No, meaning because of sleeping and I remember walking around so, now I see how I lose my purity and my innocence, because now everything's about did the kids sleep or not, how much did I sleep, when did they wake up? But when they're just given as neshamas in bodies to you, do you start deciding, are they good or bad? And what do I make the decision on? Do they sleep a lot at night or do they cry through the night? Remember, Scott? We were talking about this. Are they good is she a good baby or a bad baby? She's a baby, which means she's everything. Life itself. She's life. You know, when we're connected to this teaching the most, how much when we have a child, and we say, just life itself is the best thing in the world. Just life, just living. Do you know how privileged we are to go through tests? Going through tests means that you're alive. You know who doesn't go through a test? Someone that Nebuch is paralyzed, sitting in a hospital his whole life, and mentally also things aren't working. He doesn't have to go through any tests because the mental waves aren't working. Guess what? He doesn't have to go through any tests. Nebuch, what he would give to go through one test in life. Reb Shlomo says that Yitzchak, this is a very deep thing. He says, you know what Yitzchak's gvura is? You know what his power is? Yitzchak somehow knew how to miss something without not having it. Meaning, we usually, the only way we know how to really want something is when it's taken from me. Bless you. How do I really want something if I have it already? How many people carol of what they would do to get married, what they would do to have children, and that longing, that desire that plays a role in their heart, it defines them. Their whole lives are based on that longing and desire for something. What happens once they get that which they long for? Rabbi Shlomo says, hell is when you stop desiring that which you already have. Heaven is when you keep on missing it, even when you have it. Does that make any sense, Chaver? Let's say it like this. Shelo neda. When do you desire and value health? When you don't have it. Yitzchak, something about him, he was able to know how precious all those things in life were, even when he had it. Yeah, that's for another shiur. Anyway, but it's connected to tonight.
It's also so true with Am Yisrael as a klal, with when's there the achdut in Am Yisrael? Only when there's a war. Only when something bad happens.
It takes funerals to bring 800,000 people together, or whatever you want to say. It takes funerals, as beautiful as that was, and it was the highest Kiddush Hashem in the world. What a sad, Zelda, you wrote about this.
Yeah.
What a sad state of reality. That it takes death. It doesn't take life to bring people together. Unfortunately, it takes death to bring people together in this world. That's absurd. That's not God's dream. That's not, when God dreamed about the world and creating people and love, He didn't say, wow, and then when someone dies, everyone will come together. Isn't that beautiful? When that person, how?
We're so serious about serious things and not serious about happiness.
We're never happiness, simcha is never something that you look at or you view as a very serious matter. Pain, that is serious. Sadness, death, that's serious. But
Learning is
I forget that we asked the question, we always ask, how do you live? We never ask, how do you die? How do you die? Like, how do you feel about living and all? But nobody asks you, how do you feel about dying?
I never heard that.
So then someone else said, we never share when we get to discuss.
I never heard that. All right, Chaver, back inside. Third paragraph. So this is what the Holy Ishbitzer is saying. The essence of Yiddishkeit, the essence of life, is that it's not given to you for free. Manna was not the essence of life. Manna was...
Back to the beginning there with water coming up to Rivka. She didn't have to do anything about it.
He's getting to it.
It'd be really holy sitting on
It's
top of the
Gewalt.
layers.
You're Gewalt. He's mamish getting to it right now. It's so awesome. He's getting to that right now. Rivka, the mother of Israel, knows that if she really is the mother of Israel, then she knows, I don't want my children to just receive gifts. I don't even want them to receive undeserved gifts from God. The essence of Yidden is that from my part, I have to do a little bit. I don't want to be chosen only because Eliezer saw this miracle happen with the water. I want him to ask for it. Meaning, I want him to ask for something. And here, I want you to open your hearts as if you could learn what we learned until now with a closed heart, right? Very interesting. I don't know. Now he's saying here, I want you to open your hearts. Like, do you think that any of this had to do with the head until now? It's amazing, right? The Gemara says, "Ptach li peta," open the gates for me as the hole of the needle, and I will open for you openings as wide as the gates of the Beis HaMikdash. We do a little bit, and God gives us so much. But what's so amazing is that we do a little bit. Not that God gives us so much. we do a little bit is just as important as God gives us so much. So let's go one step deeper. The Torah tells us that the mother of Israel is Rivka. How so? Because Eliezer asks for a glass of water, and Rivka says, well, not only will I give you a glass of water, but I will give your camels too. She knows you don't give out things for free. You ask for it. And I want you to know, this is, because I had a very big question, and I said, wait a second. What did Eliezer, okay, I understand. You have to work for something in this world. What did Eliezer do? Do you know how much tefillah it took Eliezer? How much tefillah he put into asking Rivka for the water? Do you know how much he cried for that water? Because that was his siman. He knew that choosing the mother of Am Yisrael depended on that asking. That was the siman that he kept for himself. The avoda, the tefillah in the siman that he made for himself was to no measure. Like, I want you to understand. You know, you and I, everyone in this room and in the world lives based on their own simanim of what's right for me and what's not right for me. Everyone has these simanim. Everyone has these signs that they make for themselves in life saying, is this for me or is this not for me? No book can tell you the answer. And essentially, even if Rabbanim, Tzadikim, Mekubalim, shrinks tell you the answer, at the end of the day, you have to live with your decisions or not. Not anybody else. You go to sleep with your own pekalach at night. So, those simanim you make for yourself in life to tell you, to guide you as to what's right and what's wrong, you put everything that you know into these things.
That's basically the Torah of Velech Lecha B'derech that Rabbi Shlomo would talk about. How he had to teach it to himself. He said, I had the greatest ones, B'shiv Techa B'veisecha, but I never had anyone teach me Velech Lecha B'derech.
That I had to learn on my own. As he said, Nachon. Again, that is the end of this bottom to third paragraph. You ask for it, you cry for it. And Gewalt was Eliezer crying for it. What was he crying for? Not the water. He was crying to make sure that this shlichus was carried out correctly to bring a mother
She behaved
from
like
Am
a
Yisrael.
friend. He did a little and she gave him so much.
That's exactly it. Eliezer cried for one thing of water, and then how did he know she's the one? Because she acts like the way the Ribono Shel Olam acts with us. P'tach li petach kechudo shel machat. You do just a little bit, and Gewalt, am I going to shower you with so much more? But you have to do that little opening. You have to do that little opening, because if not, even if I give it to you, it'll mean nothing to you. It will mean nothing to you. Yeah. On a very grand scale. On a very grand, like this whole, Hashivenu Hashem Elecha v'nashuva. What do you think? I come to God and God comes to me in the same way? Can you imagine if God only answered us in accordance to our understanding of God? Oy vey zmir. Can you imagine if the way God answered us, it had to do with mamish on the same level of my capability of understanding Ribono Shel Olam? It'd be pathetic. It wouldn't be really life. It wouldn't really be life. Because the way the Ribono Shel Olam gives back is Ein Sof. Ein Sof, it's infinite. Look what he says here. You're crying for it, I'll give you more. Second to bottom paragraph. The Ishbitzer says, we're okay with time, a few more minutes, Chavra? 2 more minutes. Yeah, right. The Ishbitzer says that the other side, the non-God side, gives you everything for free. Like the Ki'ilu, the Hislapshus. Right. Wait, what's a Sitra Achra? That's not Hashem? The non-God side is Ki'ilu. It doesn't mean exactly. Chaim Meir is saying, right, is there something that's non-God in the world, but it's our, what's that? The klipas, yeah. Meaning the side, like we have a concept called Sitra Achra, which means the other side, right? So,
Maybe the side of not seeking God.
okay, let's work with that. The Ishbitzer says that the other side, the non-God side, gives you everything for free. You know why? Because the other side doesn't want it to be yours for real. And anything you get without asking and crying for isn't really yours. Then,
It's about the rain in Israel.
Nachon,
Versus
nachon.
Mitzrayim with the Nilo.
now let's continue. Let me ask you something, friends. Can you imagine how much the Holy Land is ours? We've been crying for it for 2,000 years. And that's why it can't be that after coming back after 2,000 years, that we're meant to settle on anything but the whole thing. If I didn't cry for Eretz Yisrael for too long, and it's this little Zionist awakening which started taking place when I was minus 6 million in 1945, 1946, okay, I'll come to Eretz Yisrael and I'll have whatever I get, and I'll say thank you, which is nebuch, the way that we're being tested every single day with this whole notion, right? But because we've been crying for 2,000 years, you think when I say Ptach li petach kechudo shel machat, God, I'm just going to open up a little bit, and then God says, okay, so have a strip here and a strip here. The way the Ribono Shel Olam gives you Eretz Yisrael is the way that Rivka gives Eliezer the water. Everything. And anyone that's not connected to this nikuda of the way that the Ribono Shel Olam gives you back something, whatever they have is not really theirs. You know, imagine someone that cries to have a child for 10 years, they can't have children. Shalom Nida. All the gates for children should be open for everyone. Healthy children in the world. So imagine after 10 years of crying so much to have a child, you're blessed with a child, and you find out at a young age that there are a lot of developmental disorders. Let me ask you, do you start saying, well, you know what, it was enough that he gave me a child, I'm not going to start asking for more, I couldn't even believe I have this. Who says that? The other side says that. Heavy stuff, but that's the other side. Bless you. So you see what it is, bottom paragraph. In order to reach a vessel for something infinite, you have to ask for it. You have to pray for it, you have to cry for it. You have to want it so much. You have to want it with the deepest depth of your heart. You have to want it so much that there's not 1/1000000000 of an inch that doesn't want it. And then, the little that God gives you means the world, but God is saying, oh, wait a second. You thought this is all I'm going to give you? Oh, you don't even know what I have in store for you. Just keep on giving one more drop. Yukach na me'at mayim. One more drop of Torah. One more thing. One more shalom aleichem. But it always depends on this ptach li petach kechudo shel machat. You have to ask for it. Because God is saying, look, I could give you everything. I could press a button and Mashiach could come right now. But obviously, we haven't shown that enough as a klal. The tzaddikim, they're the ones that could say, really, Ribono Shel Olam, we haven't shown you? They could say that. Rabbi Yitzchak can knock on Shemaim's door. You know, the Rabshitzer, the big tzaddikim with all these stories, how they could say, really? It's not enough? You know, come on. They could demand these demandings, right? But I don't know about you, but as, like some of us, Pshutei Am, the Nebuchs, have to just go up and say, Ribono Shel Olam, can you please teach me how to walk through life and go through tests as a winner, which means what now, after everything we just learned right now?
Meaning that no matter what, we always want more and more tests. Even if we fail, we'll still want to just get more tests and more tests in order to achieve.
So on a certain level, I mean, I don't wish any tests on you, huh? Well, I don't want to, well, we say, we actually say, but what we don't want tests. I think that what we want is to believe in ourselves enough that we have the ability to know how to walk through a test.
Yeah, but that's what I don't understand. If tests are such a good thing, then why do we daven not to have tests? Daven Hashem shower.
We say no.
Not
Because you know
shower.
why? Because you know why? Alavai, that we could walk out of here really believing that tests are such a gewalt thing. Like to really
But
feel
do
that.
we want to have tests?
No, we don't. You know what we want?
It's again, al tavienu. Don't bring us to the test, make us walk to the tests.
Well, look. There's a lot you could say on
Don't
it.
stand before Hashem and say, you'll test me.
Right.
Yeah.
What we do is that, look, I know it's like this. It's like saying like this. Okay, look, I know it's going to be crazy. It's going to be wild. Whose journey in this room, whose godly journey hasn't been wild, right? Wild. Wild. But what I do is it's like, hey, look, I'm not asking you to like throw me into a pillar of fire or tell me to take my son and shecht him. I don't want tests. But what I do want to know is one thing, Ribbon Shalom. Send me out on tests the way that Avram sent out Eliezer to find a wife. What did Eliezer do? What did Avram have him do before he left to find a wife? Simna yadcha tachas yirechi v'asita. It's unbelievable. That's why I'm saying, like, next time we learn this, and there will be a next time, because we have to learn this piece every week. If we really were, if we were serious, this is like a happy serious. This is what we have to do this every single week. This evening, but if you look at the way and the manner in which Avram sends Eliezer out, that's kind of on a certain level the way that we're standing before Ribono Shel Olam. It's not tevi'in lidei nisayon. So what is it? If tests are so good, I only see that tests are good when I look back. I don't look at a test and say, this is going to be a great mikvah. I look back afterwards and I say, I can't believe it. I can't believe what... I look back at the whole year and I'm saying, wow, I can't believe all those nisyonos. Because today I'm in college. Last year I was in kindergarten, but that happens every year. Yeah, David.
You know, I think a real inside winner might be
Please.
is knowing that you're never a loser.
Knowing that what?
You're never, in other words, you may think you're a loser. We feel like a loser. Hashem is always there, and it's like you didn't lose.
That's a real. You just came back from Oman. No, it's a very. That's with Nachman Zoltaya, 100%. 100%. Because that's like, at the end of the day,
It's supposed to be.
Bani matem la Hashem alekechem. Like, you're all kinderlach, yeah. But you know what? I can't start a test knowing that I'm never a loser because.
Not starting just that way.
Right,
Saying,
ending maybe, but starting a test, if I go like that,
looking back at it, you say, you know what?
yeah,
If I think I lost, I didn't really lose it because there's a Masha Hashem all the time.
Yeah. yeah.
I think it's the destiny, I think the Rabbis talked about it last time with someone else, destiny versus fate.
It's Rav Soloveitchik's famous.
Right, so it's if you're going into a situation, you think, this is my destiny to deal with this. This is fate, well, never it's my fate. What's going in?
Very strong.
The attitude of strength.
Very strong.
It's not meaningless.
Very strong. I want to share with you personally, Chaver, because everything personal. I'll just end with this. I a few weeks ago, I started a week right after Sukkot, a week that I knew there were going to be tough decisions, which in the past I fell, and meaning it's not like if I tell you what it is, you'd laugh. But for me, they're big decisions, heavy decisions which really shouldn't define who I am. It's just for whatever reason it is. I say I could like learn so many things out of this decision making. I'm this, I'm that. For some of you it's shtuyot, for some of you it's everything. The bottom line is that I knew. Somehow I started the week off saying, look. The truth is, this happened also the week we moved. The week we moved to here, from the past, I know moving is, for some reason, the most emotionally traumatic thing that happens to
It's
us.
very stressful.
And it plays with your emotions on such a deep level. So I knew, because we already moved twice since we were married, it was the third move, and I knew that it's a big trap to start thinking very low of yourself because of the way and the manner in which you conduct yourself in moving, all these ideas, whatever, it's not important right now. Anyway, regarding the moving, so I remember waking up and I said to myself, I'm going to get through this right now like a winner. I'm going to go through this week like a winner. Guess what? It didn't end up like my vision of a winner, the moving. But because I said to myself, I'm determined to get through this week like a winner, no matter what, I'm going to do whatever I can to not go through things like a loser, the outcome was not as important. It was amazing. Does that make any sense? The outcome, like the way things ended up happening, whether everything went smoothly or not, if I got ripped off or not, those things didn't matter so much because I knew that I am going to go through this week like a warrior and not think that tests are predestined for failure. You know?
Changing your perspective.
But when you change your perspective,
Yeah,
what happens is
bunch of other things
the,
that
you don't. Well, that's the thing. You change the meaning of the result.
yeah, you don't change.
You don't change the result. You change the meaning of the result. So Yitzchak. So you see, you have to understand. This whole thing, everything we learned right now. You know how many weeks we learned? How many years we learned Parshat Chayei, reading the story of how Rivka met Eliezer, and we move on. Do you realize we covered maybe 2 psukim tonight? Torah is so infinite. 2 psukim. Anyway, we should be so gebenched to close it. We'd be so gebenched to merit the schus of truly, and we don't have the answer yet, but it's okay to truly walk through all the tests in life like winners. beis migdashcha besimchas olam v'leirushalayim beis migdashcha besimchas olam hey la 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 oh oh la 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 ay la 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 ay la 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 ay la la ay la 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 beis migdashcha ay besimchas olam. Thank you so much for coming, everyone.